You've heard about Kawhi's secret deal, but how about his actual extra super secret deal that makes this even juicier? Plus, Cam Thomas is back on the Nets. Is that good for Cam Thomas or the Nets? Restricted free agency stinks. And you'll hear about it all today on Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday night or Friday morning, and welcome to Locked On NBA Game Night, your way to get the latest and greatest around the association every single night in a way that only the Locked On Podcast Network can do it. Jake Madison's gone today, so I'm filling in. Tony East of Locked On Pacers joining me and joining you as usual on this day of the week. It's Locked On Celtics host John Corrales. And John, you're going to be a central figure today as we talk even more about the Kawhi Leonard incident. I don't really know what to call it yet. Sometimes I hear scandal, and I think
situation.
That's sometimes I don't think it's big enough. Cam Thomas signed what I think stinks for him and stinks for the Nets contract, but sometimes it's how restricted free agency goes because it stinks, and we're going to break it down. But we have to start from a report from some guy named John Corrales in the Boston Sports Journal that the Kawhi Leonard deal that you heard about on Pablo Torre finds out the $7 per year millions of dollars from aspiration was just the tip of the iceberg. John, is that true?
That is true, according to a source, a high-level source in aspiration. I did learn that the $28 million deal, which has been characterized as a no-show job, which my source also disputed in a sense, but the $28 million that Kawhi Leonard was paid was only part of the deal because he had a second, even more secret deal with, I'm going to say with Aspiration, but really it was with Joseph Sandberg, one of the co-founders of Aspiration, who through a separate side venture cut a deal with Kawhi Leonard, according to my source, that promised Kawhi Leonard $20 million worth of Aspiration stock. Now, it's important to note that Aspiration stock never became fluid. It ultimately became worthless because Sandberg was indicted and pled guilty to a massive fraud that was mostly unrelated to Aspiration. And they never went public. And so the $20 million that was part of the deal just kind of like it disintegrated, right? It never came to pass. But the important thing is twofold. That Sandberg was paying, was giving Kawhi the stock out of his own personal portfolio. So Aspiration didn't pay him a deal that they agreed to that said, "Hey, here's $48 million, here's $28 million in cash and $20 million in stock." He cut a deal, an endorsement deal with Aspiration that was kind of signed, sealed, delivered before anybody could review it. And then separately, a $20 million deal in stock with one of the co-founders that was done through a side venture that was that did not go through Aspiration at all. So it's very secret and separate. And the important thing about all that is it brings it to $48 million in total promised compensation, which now closely matches the $50 million that Steve Ballmer had committed to invest in Aspiration.
Would you say, because a big part of why this is such a big deal, among many things, is the fact that many are suggesting or accusing the Clippers of salary cap circumvention, which is, as Adam Silver said years ago, would be the cardinal sin. He wants every team to be on a level playing field. It's, when it's a contract of dollars per year, I think it's easier for people to understand how that could be the case. In this case where it's not with the company and it's like a stock thing instead. And, would you consider that a part of the same scope? And in your conversation with your source, did you get anything of the likes of that?
As far as the salary cap circumvention, like that, I think that the way my source characterized it, I think is similar to what Pablo Torre's sources have characterized it. I think everybody kind of understood that this felt like a way to circumvent the salary cap for sure. Because the deal was, first of all, way out of whack, right? Even just the $28 million, forget the extra 20 million that I reported, the 28 million was out of whack in relation to what the other celebrity endorsers were paid. And forget the fact that Kawhi did nothing at all to earn any of this, either by his choice or, according to my source, once they were told, here's Kawhi Leonard, he is an endorser, they were like, we got nothing for this guy. It doesn't work. He's not the guy that we're going to build anything around. So we're basically not going to use him. That group, that executive team, which is a high profile executive team that comes from, Hulu and Napster and Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop and TrueCar. Those people, these are all people who are at the top of their positions in these various organizations. They all came together in aspiration. They never got a chance to vet the deal with Kawhi Leonard. This is important because if they said, hey, Tony East is going to be our celebrity endorser, an aspiration, they would go to all of these people and they'd be like, okay, let's vet Tony East. And they go, okay, yes, he's a great choice or he is a poor choice. And they would all get together and the marketing people would say, yes, we can market this. And the technology people say, yes, we can do this. And the CFO said, yes, this financially makes sense. And the legal would be like, okay, here's our contract terms. That's how this works. But what I found is that all of those people were told, Kawhi Leonard is our endorser. Here is a contract that is done. This is it. You have nothing to do with it, which is weird and uncommon. And so that leads you to believe like, okay, something's up. And then when you hear the side deal that is 20 million in stock, like, okay, so now it's like a $48 million commitment. And then you hear that Steve Ballmer has made a $50 million commitment, which, by the way, he paid more for his shares than other investors were paying at that time, where he should have been paying less because he's a high profile investor. All of these things add up to, why it's the windy, why would they do that meme? You know what I mean? So yeah, when we say salary cap circumvention, this screams hush hush. Why would they pay him in stock from a founder's stash? The founder's personal, like, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. So they took active steps to hide and mislead when it came to Kawhi Leonard's endorsement with aspiration.
And you have to wonder how intentional that was, if it is a circumvention thing, because everybody has pointed to the Timberwolves and Joe Smith recently, the last very public case of circumvention. And I am too young to have been an adult and understand what was happening when that happened. But from reading about it now that I do cover the NBA, a lot of what made that revealed is Joe Smith's agents, I believe, wanted their deal in writing during a Timberwolves ownership change.
That was done. There's hard evidence of all of that.
And so when that went to court or whatever system that it had to go through to be litigated, it was discovered, and it's very obviously right there written down. Okay, they are trying to, I believe it was stack minimum contracts so he'd get full bird rights and then could get paid in the future. Obviously circumvention. They're trying to give him a contract that's not permissible. Easy proof done. And that's where people get to with this Kawhi thing, and why, a second deal that you're reporting could be so interesting. Is it provable circumvention? Is it just a no-show contract that's totally separate? And the Clippers said this in statements, it's provable. We're going to talk about that coming up right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Before we do any of that, we're going to talk about FanDuel. The NFL season is here. Players are fighting before the game even starts, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff every single night with a can't-miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets that you can use across the app and whatever you like. FanDuel has something for everybody, fits however you like to bet. Many people love using it because they have those same-game parlays to get you really invested. Jump in on live action as it unfolds. Player props, love those. People love those. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick. It's easy. It's the best way to add a little more energy into your Sundays or Thursdays or Fridays or whatever day your favorite NFL team is playing. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. We're back here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Clippers, your second listen. Of course, Kawhi Leonard's team. They have quite a bit to discuss as the updates keep rolling in. John, where do you think this goes from an investigation standpoint? Because if the Clippers say they can prove it, and of course, we'll see where this goes, that they can prove it's not circumvention, I'll be very curious how this unwinds and goes. And of course, taking a statement at face value is just doing exactly that. But I'll be very curious about the burden of proof of direct circumvention in this instance.
Yeah, well, you don't have to have the full like the Minnesota situation. You don't have to have all of the papers. You don't have to have everything. Like, here's a paper with Steve Ballmer's signature and Kawhi's signature that says we're getting you an extra $40 million or $50 million, like here, and be like, oh, smoking gun. There's the league is allowed to make determinations based on circumstantial evidence. So the league can sit here and say, okay, why did you get this deal? What was this second deal, the $20 million? Why was that done on the side? Why did you, Steve Ballmer, invest $50 million and kind of like offset this? What was going on? Like, the league can say, you know what? This smells funny. And we can determine that there was an effort to circumvent the salary cap. Now, I don't know when it comes to punishment if the circumstantial evidence will lead to what Minnesota faced with loss of draft picks and voiding of contract and suspensions and stuff like that. But you can be fined. You can lose some picks. The Clippers do face some serious punishments here. Now, will they void Kawhi Leonard's contract at this point? Maybe not. And hey, you know what? Maybe if you're the Clippers, you'd be happy to have, oh, shoot, you're voiding his contract and we get that salary cap space. Like, oh, man, shucks. But at the same time, you don't want to have that reputation. Steve Ballmer, like the Clippers already got fined back in, 10 years ago when DeAndre Jordan was there for trying to organize, like they promised him a Lexus dealership sponsorship and for like $200,000. And
that was small potatoes numbers wise too.
Right. And so they got fined for that. I don't know. The Clippers certainly face serious punishment. And especially now in the second apron era where everything, like, you cannot screw up at all when it comes to player move. If you don't have draft picks, if you get, fined or a front office person gets suspended and it throws your decision making into chaos, that could really impact how your team building moves forward. And any delay, any side detour in team building in this era can set you back exponentially. So there is potential for not only a serious punishment but serious after effects.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated where this goes, right? And if he plays during the investigation or anything of that, or if the Clippers say anything else, or this has a long way to go, and we might even find out more very soon. It sounds like Pablo Torre interviewed Mark Cuban, a prior owner of an NBA team, right? Like, that will be very fascinating to hear what questions Mark Cuban has about it, what that reveals about the situation. And of course, John, I can talk all I want about it, but if people want to know about it, they should go to the Boston Sports Journal and read your reporting about the situation, because that's where they can find all these details that we are discussing, excuse me. So very interesting. And yes, circumstantial will be a fascinating part of this, especially because it's a team that has, like you said, been fined for this within the decade. And of course, Kawhi, a lot of the reporting about, his free agency and how it made teams mad. And then Adam Silver's talking about that at his presser. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that's happened that just adds to the intrigue of all the parties involved in the situation. That is, of course, past stuff that I have not personally investigated, but I'd be very fascinated to see if that plays any role here. Do you have anything else to add, John, or should we move on to a contract that did get signed with an NBA team and a player?
Let's move forward.
The first of the four big restricted free agents discussed all summer, is now down to 3. Cam Thomas. The resolution here is one that had been reported. Many people plugged into this situation said it was more than plausible that he would accept his qualifying offer with the Brooklyn Nets, and he has done so. Cam Thomas, a good player, back to the Nets on a 1-year, less than $6 million per year deal. Shams Charania reported he turned down other offers. One that was a 1-year deal worth more money, but waives his no trade clause. The second one, a 2-year deal at even more annual value, but includes, I believe, a team option. Cam Thomas elects to go with this one, meaning he has a no trade clause and is an unrestricted free agent next year. What a doozy. I think this stinks for the Nets and Cam Thomas, but I get how Cam Thomas could view it as his best resolution, given the offers out there. What do you think of this? Because is there a way this is good for both parties, neither party? How does this go to you?
Well, it's I don't know how it can be good for the Nets, because you lose control of a player, right? Like you can't trade him without his say so. And when you're, he's a young guy. So to have control of your future at this point on a team that needs to be able to make moves and would be open, I think, to moving just about anybody like this, you're trying to figure out fit and future. And does he fit as part of your future? Yes. Great. You would have signed him. You would have come up with an extension. So if I'm Cam Thomas at 23 years old and I say, if they wanted me, they would have extended me. And so if they don't want me, they're signing me to tradable contracts. And you know what? I don't want to just be moved to, I don't know, Utah. I don't want to go to Utah, let's say, or Memphis. Pick a city that you maybe doesn't want to live there or go there or wherever. Now he has control. He bets on himself. He's had big scoring years the past couple of years. He has the potential to make a serious amount of money. $6 million is a lot less than he would have made in one of these other contracts, but the control and the, knowing that, hey, I can go out there and pump up my value, and there's 10 teams with salary cap space next year. I can kind of put myself out there, and even the potential for a sign and trade, maybe I have more control over my future. I can kind of see where I want to go. I can kind of pick where I want to be. So for him, that is great. This is bad though for Brooklyn, because now Cam Thomas is going to be a selfish player. He's going to go out there and hold on. I'm stopping you at the selfish. Can I talk about Cam Thomas for a second? Yes, sir.
By asking you about non-Cam Thomas players. Bear with me, John.
I'm bearing with you.
Let me be that guy. Would you consider Amen Thompson a bad passer?
Amen Thompson a bad passer? I would say he's not a great passer.
Would you consider Drew Holiday, who you covered for years, a bad passer?
No, he's a good passer.
He is. Okay. Would you consider Stephon Castle a bad?
Not like an elite passer, but he's a point guard.
Would you consider Stephon Castle a bad passer? Selfish ball hog, any of these terms?
No.
All these players are within 0.3 assists per game of one Cam ball hog Thomas, who improved his passing a lot the last 2 years. He's a bad defender, right?
Okay.
Honestly, I don't even think Cam Thomas would tell you he's like an above average defender, but he's scored 24 points a game and is an okay passer. He got really underrated to me in a way that I'm like, what were the Nets trying to do? Because that's why I think you're right. That's like, this sucks so hard for them because he's good and you just let him do this. Like, these offers are a joke to me. I can't believe it.
I understand this. And I'm not saying that when I say he's going to be a selfish player, I'm not going on reputation.
This coming year. Yeah.
I'm saying is this coming year.
That's true.
Cam Thomas, you have a player, you have a 23-year-old player who is not happy with how the team has treated him and understands the deals that they were offering him were get him out of town potentially deals. He is now playing for a lot less money than he would have played for before. He's betting on himself. This is not the season for him to be like, hey, watch me draw double teams, accept those double teams, and really pump up my assists. And maybe that would help him financially, but at that age, at that age, people are still improving. I'm going to prove myself. I have to prove something. That is in Cam Thomas's head, I'm sure, because he is a scorer by nature. This is, grip it and rip it. You know what I mean? Like, he is not going to be like, I'll put it to you this way. He's driving down the lane and a defender steps up and he has a choice to make. What choice is he making? Is it the dump off or is he going to be, you know what? I'm finishing this. I just think over the course of 80 to however many games he's going to play, the tiebreaker is going to be shoot when there's a choice between shoot and pass.
I bet
and I think that's exacerbated by the situation.
It is really interesting. I bet the crew of over 30% usage and 57% true shooting is not very big. Like, that's Donovan Mitchell numbers, right? That's what he was like. I get why Cam Thomas has so many problems and like why this happened, but I found the Nets offers to be crap, and I'm going to tell you why. Coming up right here on Locked On NBA. We're back here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. You get 2 shows right in this feed. And of course, your second listen can be Locked On Nets, where Eric Slater will have the latest on this exact thing. I believe he talked with Michael Scotto about it, where this goes for the Nets, where this goes for Cam Thomas. And I want to touch on both parties really quick before we get to restricted free agency. Look, Cam Thomas' right to veto a trade is handed to him by the qualifying offer if he takes it. So the Nets, if they want him to not have that and they wanted to offer him a 1-year deal instead, $3.5 million is not worth it. Like, Cam Thomas could be sent to a position that's horrible for him and lose that much money by being on a team without his bird rights that doesn't want him back. So that offer stinks to me for Cam Thomas. The other one was now I have it up. Thank you, Shams Charania, for the reporting via his agents, I believe. The other offer was 2 years, $30 million with a team option. So team control anyway. Like, I guess that's a closer, but still I'm like, no, like 15 guaranteed million, maybe a little less than that. And I once again lose the control if I'm Cam Thomas. Like, I honestly, unless you're offering him 2 guaranteed years, do not find those to be more compelling than Cam Thomas, who now can veto a trade if it's not to somewhere where he can go be in a good system for him and ball out and get himself a chance to get paid. And by being with the Nets, he keeps his bird rights, which helps him potentially if he somehow mends that relationship with them, which I don't know if that's ever happened with the guy taking the qualifying offer. I think there was a Sixers player it happened with once, but I can't remember who it was right now. Regardless, it's very rare. Where does that leave them? I get why he thinks this is the best option for him to maximize his earnings, because I don't think those Nets offers are particularly good. That said, only one team having your bird rights, and if you get traded, that new team you get only having your non-bird being able to offer you like $7 million. This is also not great for Cam Thomas, but I think the offers he got were so poor that the bad solution was the best. And that is just the nature of the beast with restricted free agency.
And that's where, like, the restricted free agency impact on this is really interesting to me, because $6 million is not a lot of money, but you know what? Playing 1 year at $6 million to potentially get yourself to keep control of your future, and to, you're betting on, I'm going to make this up somewhere down the road anyway. Maybe some tree planting company will give you a secret deal that can help, finance that. But
I'm not allowed to laugh at that yet.
But, the restricted free agency element here was always baked into the way teams drafted and why 18 and 19-year-olds were just so coveted at the top of drafts. Because you're like, we have control of these guys for 10 years. Like, of course you extend them. They're going to take your restricted free agency offer. You're going to give them that first max contract. You're going to see them through to, 25, 26 before you even have to figure out, is this guy actually capable of being the star or a second or a third, whatever option. Now, if players are starting to feel like taking the qualifying offer is fine, and we'll just enter unrestricted free agency. Now the way you go all the way to how guys are drafted, and the guys you draft, you maybe, does that impact? Do you not draft certain 18, 19-year-olds? And obviously top 5, you're going to take your top 5 pick, but in the middle of the draft, below top 10, do you skew a little older because you're like, hey, if these guys are going to leave, I'm going to need somebody who's a little bit more mentally ready now. And I don't know if that's going to be the case, but it certainly raises a lot of interesting possibilities about restricted free agency, how long teams perceive they have control of certain players, and how players are going to move. Are we going to have a crop of guys in their early 20s being like, okay, now I'm unrestricted at 24 or 23 or whatever, 22. I'm unrestricted because I want to have my situation. And you look at that ripple effect. When teams plan to have their cap space changes.
Yep.
Because I don't know if Cam Thomas is the guy, but somebody's going to be the guy. Cooper Flagg, let's just throw that out there. If he comes to a point where he wants to be, you know what, I'm not feeling this, I'm going to take my qualifying offer, and he'll enter, free agency. Teams usually line up their cap space for like the 25, 26. Our team's going to start lining up their cap space earlier for guys, hoping that signaling to them, hey, if you take your qualifying offer, we're here with cap space. So I think there's a real potential long ripple effect of guys. Maybe this is the beginning of guys taking these qualifying offers and changing the dynamics of team building across the league.
So I have a lot of questions that this one situation puts in my head that I think we'll actually learn a lot about trend-wise in the NBA in the next year. One is the idea, and Cam Thomas isn't a super high pick, so he's not the perfect example for this, but people talk a lot about how the money in these contracts in the NBA just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, crazier and crazier. Well, in turn, the qualifying offer also gets bigger. So at what point does it become less painful for the guy taking it? Because they're like, I'm still getting a ton of money on this one-year deal, right? And so I think Cam Thomas's market value is much higher than $6 million myself, but like, I understand that is a factor. Is this a one-off thing in that way? Who knows? My second question would be, how does this actually end up going for Cam Thomas? If he gets paid a ton of money next year from a different team, I think a lot of free agents will go, oh, look at this. I could do what he just did and get somewhere else and get paid by a different team who actually values me and wants me and is paying me money. And then the other part of this trend that will be fascinating, of course, we still have to see what happens with Kuminga, Giddey, and Grimes. And I would also add, by the way, that all 4 of those guys are kind of in unique circumstances where like one is very good and clearly doesn't fit with their team. One got traded to their team before last season. One got traded to their team during last season. Like, that's not the most typical way for like a good rookie scale contract player to be traded. Is this a new CBA thing where teams are more like, we have to be very cautious with our extensions? The Rockets sub-maxing Alperen Şengün was maybe like the start of people thinking that could be the case. Or is it just because this is a low cap environment summer? And next year, you alluded to this earlier, when there are potentially more teams with space, and some of them are bad teams, right? The Wizards, the Jazz, the Bulls among them, right? The Clippers, funnily enough, could it be that next year restricted free agency goes great for the restricted free agents because they can actually get offers, and then we're like, well, that just was a crappy one-year situation for Cam Thomas. So I think there's a lot of questions about this process that will be answered in the next 12 months or so that will be very telling for the future of how restricted free agents actually strategize in these situations.
My feeling is that this will enter the collective bargaining process somehow.
No one likes it. like teams don't love it either. They like having their young players. That's why it exists. But like this part of the process, no one likes this.
Right, because you inherently end up pissing off the player. You know, like famously, I go back to like the Gordon Hayward situation where he signed an offer sheet with Charlotte, like, and teams, like a fan, somebody listening or watching this is going to say, you see it all over social media. Like, you play hardball. You say, go ahead, go get your offer sheet. And if you can get it, we'll match it. No problem. But that pissed Gordon Hayward off and he left Utah. And obviously things changed, but that restricted free agency does put player and team at odds in a very tense situation very early. And, these are young guys that can take things a lot more personally than the older guys who have been in the league and understand the business a little bit better. So I think the league will be watching this collective, this restricted free agency process, starting with Cam Thomas. We go into the Giddey Kuminga and that. Let's see how next year's restricted free agency class goes. I would not even be surprised if like the league and the union say, let's convene and see if we can come up with a sidebar solution because this is causing problems. Every collective bargaining agreement has unintended consequences. I think restricted free agency is going to be one of those unintended consequences of this CBA. So I wouldn't be surprised if they said, maybe we need to fix this particular thing, put a side letter into the CBA and fix that before we reopen all of the negotiations.
If you want to win your trivia coming up, I'm not sure about only, but the only player I've ever heard of, I found it, John. There's no way you ever to guess this. The only player I can find who signed their qualifying offer with a team and then re-signed with that team, Spencer Hawes in 2011 and 2012 with the Philadelphia 76ers. Congrats to Spencer Hawes for coming up on trivia today.
Hey, good for you on the memory there, because you said it was the Sixers.
I remember it was the Sixers, and so I could look it up, and then now I'm looking at it, and every single
Spencer Hawes.
The last one I can see on this list, but this article is admittedly a little old, is Norris Cole, but that doesn't seem right. I think there's been qualifying offers since then. But Spencer Hawes stayed with Philly for another year. So hope yet for Cam Thomas to be the next Spencer Hawes. That is the only time you'll ever hear that sentence.
What a headline that is.
And that is why you listen to Locked On NBA Game Night, reporting trends, all of the above every single day. And I thank you all so much for listening today. You can find more of John on Locked On Celtics, more of me on Locked On Pacers. Tomorrow, plenty more in your feeds. Lots of Eurobasket going on. They're on to the knockout stage. We'll see you then. Take care.